What is the design concept of the new library?
Okay. The basic design concept that we were given from the client was to create a building that was to delight and inspire for 21st century facilities. So we wanted to create a space within the city that wasn't just about the books, that you can now sort of see throughout the layout. We wanted to create spaces that people could read in, that they could work in, socialise in, lively spaces like you've got with the atrium, quieter spaces like where we are now, and then also bring in sort of some of the regional and historic pride with the Newcastle collection and local family history and things up on the top floor.
Are there any special features or ideas behind the design?
Yeah, we're sort of sat in the main one at the minute, which is the grid. The idea of the grid was that we wanted it to be like a bookcase, so it would showcase each of the specialist areas. So we've got music and media, reference browsing. We've got the viewing gallery up on the 6th floor, which is what our company sponsored. So we've got the Arnie Jacobsen, Fritz Hansen chairs in there. And it was the idea that from the outside it looked like this bookcase with all these sort of little jewels in, and then your main floor plate was where all the activity sort of happened. There's also quite a few features of reuse of existing materials. So from the old building we took the Westmoreland slate that was on the floors, and that's actually been cut and applied onto the walls in the Newcastle collection. The Portland stone from the floor, we used that and made some plinths out of it, and tried to reuse as much of the good materials that we could salvage, really.
What other materials, like new materials, is it glass and steel?
Yeah, it's quite typical construction. You know, you've got your blockwork and steel, but then within the budget we really wanted to get the best materials that we could. So we've got the polished block downstairs, and on the ground floor your glazing, and then obviously there's the graphic artwork as well. That was by a local artist, Catherine Hodgkinson. And it was called 4 Questions, the piece. I don't know if you know anything about it.
Not really.
She commissioned this piece called 4 Questions, went across the city and asked people to fill in a questionnaire about it was hope, fear, happy and change. It's what do you feel about all those things? Members of the public answered it, and then it was all collated and put into a design which is on the glass. So that's why there's
the butterflies.
So there's random
really
statements like pies freak me out and things like that. And it's all from the public.
I see. Is it possible to tell me that where did you get the new materials from?
As far as I know, we tried to source as much local material as possible. Certainly the travertine on the floor and things like that, but down to budgetary constraints, I'd imagine quite a bit of it won't have been as local as we would have wanted. Where did you get the inspiration of the design from? Mainly from a lot to do with obviously the client. The library service were involved right the way through the process. We had a number of design visits, so we took them around Peckham Library, the Ideas Store, Brighton Library, went to Malmo in Sweden. That was a main factor behind it. They loved that, and that sort of really influenced the design here.
So how long did the design process take?
I think in total it was just over 4 years. I think it was about 2 years up until construction, and then once we started on site it was about 2 years as well.
So 2 years design, 2 years construction. How has the rider architecture been chosen for the project? Did you enter a competition or something?
Yeah, it was a PFI competition, so I believe there was us and 2 other architects in for it. And then right before the submission, one of the other architects dropped out, so I think it was between ourselves and BDP. But as it happens, obviously it came to us.
I'm really glad that they chose your company, because I really love the design.
Hopefully so.
So what are the difficulties when redesigning a public building?
I think obviously there's a lot of user groups that you have to involve, and you want to incorporate their ideas. You know, there's obviously from the old building as well, it was such a statement piece. You know, people either loved it or hated it, and I think when we're redesigning something that represents gateway to our city. You want everybody to love it. So.
Yeah. So you mentioned that the library staff got involved with the design process. So do you think it's a good idea? And did they give you a lot of help or?
Absolutely. I mean, you couldn't do this without them. I mean, they're not just your client; they're the users at the end of the day. And certainly Tony Durkin, the head of service here, and his team, we had fortnightly meetings with them for 2.5 years, where we would engage with them, take their comments away, update.
Yeah.
And that went on, like I say, every fortnight. And so everything you see is down to them. It's what their vision for it was, really.
Yeah. How did you? Sorry. How much contribution did the librarian give to the design?
As I've said, a massive amount of contribution, and also in terms of engaging with the public, we set up a lot of public consultation sessions to get those groups interfaced as well, and that was all through the library service.
Yeah, good. Do you know what are the difficulties for the reconstruction, like the demolition process, material delivery, nature of the site, location, and the processes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with it being a city centre location, site access was a major issue. I mean, you've got John Dobson Street running past and Newbridge Street here, and in terms of deliveries and things, it was a logistical nightmare because you have nowhere to store anything. You had nowhere for wagons and deliveries and things, so that was all down to Toland really and how they organised it all. In terms of materials, it was literally scheduled on time that lorry would arrive. They would take the stuff off the lorry, either put it in the building or put it up. You know, like the glazing was literally one panel at a time, and it came off the lorry and went straight up because there's just no store or anywhere to keep anything. So really keeping everything on schedule of times was a massive thing.
So is there any problems between? Is it really smoothly or?
We'd like to think so. I think we certainly Tom did everything they could to keep it that way, but I think, you know, city centre location, you've got residents, there's going to be disruptions. It's just whether they're on board with it or not, and hopefully it was worth it in the end.
So have you worked with the Toland Construction before, and why did you choose them, or did the client choose them?
It was part of the partnership through Kojima, so there's Kojima, and then there was Toland obviously from the construction side, and ourselves on the design side. I think we've worked with them in the past on a few bits and pieces, but this is the first sort of real large-scale project we've worked with them on.
Did the library service close completely during the reconstruction?
Not completely. I think local studies and family history was stored up at the Civic Centre. There was some bits and pieces put in the Lytton Film Museum. And they also maintained like the mobile library service vans and things in the area as well. So it wasn't at full capacity, but it wasn't completely shut down.
So everything moved to the Civic Centre, and then after this is built, and you move it back to here?
Yeah, well, it wasn't all there. I mean, there was bits and pieces stored in buildings all over. Sort of, there was a school in Killingworth and things. There was stuff there. But,
And what other factors are taken in consideration when